People of Reddit, what's the most desperate thing you've ever done for money? I made $50 when I was randomly approached in a bar to be on a foot fetish site. There was no nudity or actual sexiness involved. Just a lot of pictures of women's feet on my face, chest, etc. It was way more uncomfortable than it should have been. I participated in some market research for a new beer. Sounded great at the time. I get paid to drink beer? Anyway, it was a bunch of different beers in small plastic cups, all of which started out tasting like the strainings of the devil's underpants and progressively got worse. They kept bringing more out until one guy cracked, swiped all his beers off the table and stormed out yelling, "I wouldn't even give this shit to my dog." I still don't know if it was market research or some bizarre psychological experiment. I was poor growing up. Really poor. One time, around age 8 or 9, I collected a bunch of buttons, wherever I could find them around the house, and then hit the street, door to door, trying to sell them for $1 a piece. It took me 3 hours to make $5. I was so excited that I finally had enough money to buy a sugary cereal, Lucky Charms. I went to 7-Eleven, bought a box and got home to eat it, but we didn't have milk, so I started to cry. I ended up using water instead. It was very pitiful. Fast forward 40 years and now I can buy milk and cereal anytime I want. It's great. I never take it for granted. Drive around nice apartment complexes and dig through their garbage like a raccoon for stuff I could pawn. You know you have reached rock bottom when you start working in life insurance. On my last leg I got my insurance license and then learned the job was purely commission and you make more money if you are a manager. Only to find out that as a manager you have operational costs. So you actually end up spending more money just to get through the month. Then you find out it's a pyramid scheme. This is not an insurance company, it is a hiring company that had a revolving door that never stopped spinning. Held a sign for people to see at an intersection. Normally this isn't bad. However, it is a local thing to bully those that do by throwing food items like milkshakes and slushies at them. Which is why I was hesitant to do so. Participated in a sleep study where they had us wired up to electrodes to monitor our responses at periodic intervals across 3 days without sleep. It was brutal. I learned I cannot go without sleep for 2 days in a row. Holy cow! Thank you for all the likes. I pawned some handmade jewelry that was passed to me from someone very special. When I got paid less than 2 weeks later, my items were missing from the pawn shop. I have never gotten over that and it makes me sad I never even got to wear her jewelry to something special. I met a complete stranger from the internet to sell him some used underwear. If it were a send it in the mail thing, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But part of it was that he wanted me to meet him to give them to him. And then he would pay me in cash. It was a pretty good amount, so I went for it. We talked for a while beforehand and he was really nice. I didn't get the vibe that I was gonna get killed, and I needed the money. It was a quick meet in a Walmart parking lot. Nothing really bad happened. I participated in a food study where I couldn't eat for a day before, arrived at the lab crazy early in the morning, had a tube put down my throat, and lay there for 6 hours as they pumped liquids into and out of my stomach. After the first 2 hours I begged them to at least turn on the TV, but they would only let me watch PBS so I couldn't accidentally see any commercials about food. It wasn't fun but the pay was decent and they served me a steak dinner afterward. Those dumb surveys. Wasn't worth the time I wasted, only got like $10 total before I gave up. I scrounged every inch of my car, trunk, under carpet, pulled out seats, to find enough change not to bounce a check. I needed less than $1 and had about an hour to find the money and deposit it. The banker lady knew what was up when I made the deposit. 30-some years later and I still haven't bounced a check. I worked at a little Hampton Inn. My sister and I had a small apartment, so roof over our heads, but very little food. We would take naps so we didn't have to think about being hungry. I started lifting food from work. A few small danishes, some single-serve cups of peanut butter and jam, the commercial packs of coffee for her, and she would use just one for days, wed by bread and eggs mainly. I'm pretty sure the owner was on to me though. He left at 5, either went to dinner or home, then would end up back when I was on shift. BC he accidentally ordered an extra dinner, or his wife made too much again of chicken and rice or spaghetti. I'd take it home and share. It was just a rough year. My mom visited and was shocked, immediately took us to Costco to stock up. We were still eating off that food a year later, she bought us so much. Nothing fancy, but we felt like royalty with all that food. My definition of success is being able to go to the grocery store and buy whatever I want, without counting cost as I shop. Happy to say, I am a total success. Edit, yes, minimum wage in 1998. It was market rate for the hotel industry. I moved on to the Marriott at the same wage and, in a year I qualified for reservation coordinator, double my wage. My new boss blocked me from getting the job at a new residence inn in our area, because she needed me, and offered me an 11-cent raise, 6 cents now, the other 5 to start in 6 months. And that was the end of my hotel career. LOL. Full-time, rented a converted garage apartment. My sister was starting in real estate, so we were living off what I earned. We spent only on necessities. You know, in '98, it was just the way things were. Internet was new, we didn't know it was unfair, and would have been too tired to do anything about it anyway. There's a new awareness now, and we have to stoke it and ride that wave. I really don't know exactly what to do. But, let's keep talking and getting pissed. It's the catalyst for change. Many years ago, when I was a child and my mother and I were facing homelessness, we'd spend the nights at various places like laundromats or hospitals. One night when we were really hungry, she had me dive into the wishing well to collect quarters to use for the vending machine. It's one of those surreal memories that stuck with me. Edit, dang, thanks for all the kind words, everyone. I am, thankfully and fortunately, in a much better place in my life now. My mother, bless her heart, passed away a few years after the event in question. We had a complicated relationship because of how young I was, but I don't hold anything against her as an adult. Life just deals people a rough hand sometimes. I certainly don't know what I would have done better if I were in her shoes. In university, I signed up as a lab rat for various studies. One involved staying awake for 30+ hours in a room with no sunlight, communication, or anything else that might give me a sense of time. Among blood and urine tests as well as various probes and monitoring devices, it also involved keeping a thermometer in my ass the entire time. $1,400 is $1,400 though. What is an American thing, but Americans think everyone outside of America does it? Veterans discount. When I worked in retail, I would occasionally have to explain that being a past or active member of the American military doesn't qualify you for a discount in Australia. It was usually family of the veteran who would be asking, sometimes demanding, the price reduction. Naming mere suspects of crimes with their complete names and a picture in the news. Having the waiter take your credit card at a restaurant. Most other countries bring the machine to you so you can pay at the table and at least reduce the risk of having your credit card information stolen. The gas pump only turning on after you've paid. I was in the UK and filling up my rental at a somewhat rural station and was flabbergasted that I was supposed to pay after. I asked the guy if people ever leave without paying and he just shrugged and said sometimes, but not often enough that it's a problem. I thought PBJ sandwiches was a worldwide phenomenon as a kid. Drinking root beer. My Brazilian friend told me they do not drink that, as it is the flavor of their toothpaste. The over-the-top customer service attitude. On a trip abroad, my wife thought that she upset the waiter somehow because he was generally neutral in his interaction. It was generally neutral because it was a generally neutral interaction. No need for that customer service attitude. Drinking out of red Solo cups in college. A friend of mine studied abroad in London and said her new friends asked if we actually used them or if they were only in the movies. Hospitals connected to specific insurances, and you having to make sure you go to the right one. How do you even do that after a car crash? Having garbage disposal unit installed under kitchen sink. Free refills on sodas. The sheer amount of ad breaks when watching a TV show. In the US, there seems to be one every 10 minutes, but here in the UK, you get a break halfway through a show and then in between shows and that's it. Born and raised in the US, Massachusetts. When I went to Australia, I automatically assumed that the waiter would bring the bill over when they think we're done eating and just tell us to pay whenever we're ready. I sat at the table for a good 15 minutes just browsing my phone with no food or drink on the table until I decided to call a waiter over. They told me when I'm ready, I can pay at the front counter. Went to Brazil to visit my wife's family and we ordered some street food. I tried to pay upon order and my wife told me they take payment after we finish eating even if it's street food. After eating, we totally forgot that we haven't paid yet and just got up and walked away because we're so used to paying upon order. About 50 meters of walking, I was like, wait. We didn't pay for the food. We rushed back to pay and the cooks had a good laugh about it. Have grape-flavored foods. I'm sure it exists elsewhere, but I've never seen it here in the UK. We have blackcurrant flavor instead, which is the purple version in sweets and drinks. No joke, I knew a girl who really thought every country lit fireworks on the 4th of July. What made you not want to have kids? I'm broke and I hate noise. Raised my siblings. I'm done. I had a child born with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. I felt incredibly guilty for bringing such a lovely child into this world with so much difficulty he faced. After he passed away, I never wanted to bring another child into this cruel world. To be honest, I'm too lazy to be a parent. Plus I'm terrified of the idea of pregnancy and labor. My parents. They weren't good examples to learn from. Honestly, no idea. Just never envisioned a future with children. The economy and financial instability. Just never felt that maternal urge. And it's cruel/wrong to have them unless you actually want them. Seeing them in the wild. Deleted. My wife is bipolar and I have recurring depressions. We figured adding kids to the mix wouldn't be fair to anyone. Edit, I'm keeping the hyphen, since I firmly believe my wife has the ability to be on both the North and the South Pole. Not at the same time, obviously. Giving birth. I like having my free time and don't want to ruin it. The thought of just being pregnant is terrifying. Also, you have to dedicate your entire life to them. If I can't afford a house, what makes you think I can afford a child? The economy is a dumpster fire.